Welcome to the Daikaiju Network commentary on Rampage, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. What's up, everyone?
So we decided to do this film because it's a fun movie. The movie came out back in March of 2018, and as we're recording this, it's November 2018, in case you end up watching this in the future. So we'll briefly just kind of discuss our feelings on this movie, sort of our very brief history of this film, because like I said, it's only been a few months that it's been out. Then we'll get right into the commentary and go from there. So for me, the history of this movie is one that, if you listen to our episode way back, in March, this is a movie that I really enjoy, and it seems like a lot of people within the kaiju community seem to enjoy it as well. Although there's one thing I will say about some individuals within the kaiju community that have sort of, I guess, what would you say, sort of kind of dismissed this film in a way. They will say something to the effect of Rampage is just kind of throwaway, or just kind of throwaway entertainment to a degree, whereas like Pacific Rim Uprising has a little bit more substance to it. I don't disagree with them about Pacific Rim Uprising. I think Uprising has more substance than what a lot of people have given it since it's been released earlier this year. But I don't think Rampage is throwaway. Sure, Rampage at its heart is really nothing more than three giant mutant monsters destroying Chicago ultimately and then fighting it out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do believe that there is more substance here. You have things about genetic mutations and sort of the aim of science as well, as far as like, okay, well, what about corporations getting involved in science? And the fact that some of these corporations who may be involved in certain experiments that really could do some severe damage if things aren't handled properly. I think to a certain extent, this movie, outside of just being a sort of, at the heart of it, sort of a giant monster movie of sorts, I think there's sort of an anti-corporation message to this as well. And really, if you played the old video games, there's sort of that as well. But I mean, it's touched upon very early in those games, saying these people were mutated, but then that's it. It's just a bunch of monsters. You're just destroying buildings. But this one, of course, with it being a movie trying to tell a story, it's expanding on that. You have to, if you're trying to make a movie that's at least halfway decent. And I disagree with those people big time when they say Rampage is just sort of, toss away kaiju entertainment.
So when I was watching the commentary earlier here, it's like they always kept on saying that they want to make a monster movie and everything. And to me, I mean, a lot of the kaiju movies, a lot of them are kind of inspired by some of the existing animals on the planet and everything. And whereas Rampage, they are actually animals, but just kind of genetically edited through the substance that falls down from space and everything from, was it the space station?
Yeah. And I think that this film really has it's not throwaway. And I agree with some people to some extent when some have said this movie is a lot better than what we deserved. And I would say to that, yes and no. I would say yes, it is a little bit better because it's based off of a game in which you just bash buildings and that's it. But no, in the sense that I think everything, if you're going to do a film, obviously needs to try to be treated with some sort of respect. And this is definitely treated with respect. And one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, outside of the fact that I find it to be very entertaining, is the fact that I can tell through how the story is told and the fact that they're really trying to tell a story instead of it just being a simple giant monster on the loose film. They're really trying to tell a story here as well. They're trying to set things up. Is it going to win any sort of like major awards for screenplay or something like that? No, but I will argue this has been one of the better giant monster films in the last 20 years, including those that have been made in Japan. I will say that That's my opinion. You can disagree with it all you want. That's fine. But I think this is truly one of the better ones. As much as I do like Pacific Rim Uprising, I do like this one more. But yeah, that's just sort of my personal history. I love this movie an awful lot. I've only seen it twice. I saw it once in theaters, and then I saw it once shortly after it came out on Blu-ray. And so this will be my third watching.
Yeah, this will actually be my second watching. The only time was, of course, in theaters, and I just bought this, I think, a couple months ago when it came out on the other sorts of mediums. The one I've got is the Ultra HD 4K version, which comes with obviously the UHD disc or 4K disc. Then the other one that has the other disc is the Blu-ray edition, so it doesn't have DVD or anything. So so most of the special features for this film were just on the Blu-ray version. It's kind of surprised that I didn't have it on the 4K versions, which Ken was kind of telling me yesterday is that 4K probably hasn't gotten caught on yet. So that's that. And yeah, so that's that. And then, of course, so yeah, this will be my second time viewing this film on, of course, on my TV here. And I would probably agree with Kent. Out of the two kaiju or monster related movies this year that have come out, of course, Pacific Rim Uprising and this, I probably would pick this one over Uprising so far. Just for the entertainment, the story, and kind of the monsters in this film that you can kind of relate to some of them, mainly George, and as well as some of the other characters that are involved in this movie. So you kind of get immersed with it.
All right, and so we're at our title screen here, and so if you have followed any of our previous commentaries, you kind of know what the format's going to be. I'm going to count down from 3. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, go. When I say go, I'm just hit OK on the play part of our main menu here, and then we'll get started. So here we go. We're going to get started. 3, 2, 1, go.
And then we can turn off our cameras here if we want.
All right. And one of the interesting things I find about this film is that although at the same time, I guess I'm not surprised by it either, is the fact that our main monster, our focal point, so to speak, is George. And we don't get a whole lot of the other monsters. I mean, we get a section with Ralph at one point, but Lizzie is never shown. And like I told Jason over Messenger yesterday, that I think a lot of the reason why they never showed Lizzie throughout the entire film is the fact that when Lizzie does come up later in the film, it's the biggest of the three, and they're wanting to impress the audience with how huge it is. The unfortunate aspect with doing that with Lizzie is the fact that, okay, here you have this creature that is the bigger one of the three, and sadly, there's a plot hole in that. Okay, well, how did a creature that size more or less go undetected until it reaches Chicago? So, I mean, sadly, that is a plot hole for this film, but at the same time, again, I'm willing to give it that because, again, even though it is at its heart sort of a giant monster film, that is a plot hole.
May want to turn down your volume just a bit. But yeah, one of the things in the commentary was that there was at least a first draft that was handed to the director, Peyton Brand, I think it was, who directed this.
Brad
Sounds
Peyton.
like you made, yeah, Brad Peyton. Sounds like you're maybe a few seconds ahead of me, but that's okay. Let's see here. It sounded kind of more science fiction-y in a way, and they kind of wanted something that was a bit more believable. So they kind of did some research a little bit more on how to kind of strategize and how to kind of get things to sound more grounded in reality and not so much science fiction-y. And that's kind of where this genetic engineering project, CRISPR, which is an actual thing out there. And so they brought in a bunch of people from universities, such as one of the professors over at USC, kind of talk to them more on the whole CRISPR project and the genetic engineering, how DNA worked and operated, and so on and so forth.
One of the things I really love about this opening sequence is that it's very much like a horror film. I mean,
Yeah.
this really not only gets you into the film, but it really sort of sets a little bit of a tone too, that at some point this movie does get a little brutal here and there. And anybody who's already seen this film knows that at the ending of it, the fight between all three of them is really brutal. And also, anybody who's familiar with a number of the Rampage games, I truly do believe what we have here at the beginning with this mutated rat that we'll see here. I do think this is a callback to Rampage 2 that was released on Nintendo 64 about 20 years ago. A rat, if you remember, if you played that game, there was a character you could play called Curtis, and he was a rat. And I can't remember if this particular rat was given a name here or not, but
I don't think so.
I always thought that this particular animal here, this rat, I thought was sort of sort of a fun little fan Easter egg here.
Yeah, and at least there's a few Easter eggs that the commentary, some of the special features have pointed out and everything, which I didn't realize that they were existing. Although there were at least a couple that I noticed when seeing in theaters, and then of course, obviously, the rat here, which was a callback to what you said to the Rampage 2 that was on Nintendo 64. But hopefully, when we get to those points in the movies here, we'll kind of point those out. But kind of referring back to what you were saying, that the movie can be brutal at times, even though that this movie was PG-13, there are some instances in this film that seemed pretty gory for a PG-13 film, which kind of surprised me.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I can tell just during my lifetime, just even in the last 15, 20 years, how much you can get away with PG-13 movies anymore. And it's amazing. Like, some of the stuff shown here you would not have seen in PG-13 movies 20 years ago.
Yeah. And it's kind of like with our movies nowadays that they're kind of getting to be more violent when it comes to the horror genre there.
I have to say, though, when talking about Dwayne Johnson for this movie, I never would have thought first and foremost he would have done a movie like this. But then I guess when you really think about it, you take a look at the movies that he has been in, like San Andreas, Jumanji, and a handful of others, it sort of makes sense that he would probably take a role like this. But I really do like him as an actor. I think he's a good actor, and I think he provides a lot of charisma to the roles that he brings. I don't watch a ton of his films. I mean, obviously, I've seen some of them, and I own a couple of them, including this one. But I really do believe he adds a charisma and a presence that I think really helps this film.
Yeah, and one of the features I was watching earlier was that this is actually kind of a personal. He kind of has a personal connection with the whole game and everything, as he played the original Rampage arcade game many, many, many times. I think he spent many hours even skipping school just to play Rampage. Even some of the producers and the director himself, that they've have kind of a personal connection to Rampage. So it's to Dwayne here, this was kind of a personal sort of dream to him, was to kind of take part playing in a movie based on the game itself. And some of these apes here that we see, those are actually one of the trainers, two kids that play in a mocap, and then one of them, kind of the male alpha there, is the actual trainer who trained the guy who plays as Ralph. I think Jason Lines, I believe it was. And I was watching Brain and George the Live, and it was a really interesting commentary that they did, or feature that they did, talking about how the main trainer kind of is one of the leading guys, and how kind of gorillas think, walk, act, and everything. It was really interesting.
Well, and I really love the special effects of this film, because a lot of kaiju films are set during the dark, because sadly, as great as CGI is today, depending upon your budget and also how much time you're giving the animators, sadly some seams can be shown, and some of the animation in daylight can even seem too fake. But here they did a wonderful job. I mean, for a movie that had $120 million budget, which, isn't chump change, but it is sort of, I guess you would call that maybe a decent budget, maybe a moderate budget for a film kind of like this. They did a wonderful job, because a lot of the scenes are taken during the daylight hours, and they really do a wonderful job animating all three of the of the Rampage characters, and making them move and making them look really believable. I mean, it's astounding what they were able to accomplish here. I mean, it really is amazing, and for a film that you would think most people would just, kind of like I mentioned earlier in this commentary, would just kind of dismiss more or less. You would think not as much love and care would be brought into it, and that's not true. And that's what this movie, again, and one of the reasons why I love it, is the fact that you had people who love this property working on the film, and as a result, they put that love and care into the production of this film, and that's what you really need to make any sort of film. You need people who really not just believe in the project, but really are attached to it in some way, that they can give it the love and attention it deserves.
Yeah, and I think one of the producers, or Brad Payton, was saying that they kind of want to have it in daytime, because a lot of monster movies are at night, and it's just that a whole lot of things, it's like they don't necessarily like hide during the day or anything, so they just kind of wanting something a little bit different. And it also kind of challenged everyone that worked on the project, even the people over at Weta who did all the CGI, with the monsters and settings and everything. And it kind of put their A game into this movie.
Oh, George flipping off Dwayne. I have to admit, though, even though that's sort of childish humor, I have to admit that's something I did not see coming when I first saw this film.
No.
That's what makes it funny.
And I think it kind of also adds the character to George, but also kind of builds up that relationship between Davis and George here. Davis is Dwayne's character's name.
Even though really my biggest sort of, I guess, I don't know what you would say, complaint or nitpick of this movie is that we didn't get as much of Lizzie and Ralph in this movie as I would have liked. Um, the thing I have to say though too is that this movie does such a good job of making you feel for George that when the final battle does come, you are like hating on Ralph and Lizzie. Like you are so much into it that you're pulling for George. I remember, and of course, I obviously will get to it. There's a scene where Ralph is, I mean, not Ralph, George is trying to run away from Lizzie, and Lizzie grabs George by the leg, and you're just like, oh no, like kill that motherfucker, George. Like you're really like into it. You're really wanting to see George get out of this and, do a good job and to survive. And like I told Jason back before this movie was even released, I had a couple theories as to what was maybe going to happen. And I said one theory I had was that maybe Ralph and George would team up to take down Lizzie, and then it would be between George and Ralph. And then I'm like, but I think the most likely scenario is going to be, Ralph somehow gets taken out early, and which does happen. Spoiler alert, I guess. And
Way to go.
and then it's going to be between Lizzie and George. But I also told Jason, I said I also thought George would end up dying like a few moments later after the battle from injuries or something like that. And they play with you on that, but he survives. I mean, I almost said, dude, I called it when I was in the theater, but they had George come out, which I think also makes sense. But I really thought, maybe they were just going to end the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Maybe turn your volume down just a couple more notches. But yeah, here comes basically all of the debris from outer space there with some of those, I don't know what you call them, pods, devices that carry the mutation genetic editing type of substance.
The movie wastes no time though in really getting things going. This is only a 2-hour movie, but they really get things going here right away.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a scene that I always thought, was pretty well done. I mean, you feel not just for the bear, but you feel for George as well.
Oh yeah. I kind of like to know what they made the bear out of, because obviously that's not a real bear.
Oh no.
I also kind of like the way with George, how they did with George in this particular scene, is that he didn't really like what he did.
Yeah, it again, it really makes you feel for him. He's fighting something that genetic thing is like screwing with him, and
Yeah.
just
And then plus being scared and everything, it's like he doesn't even know what happened. You can see him breathing really heavily there. And then you can already see him being larger than he was originally, just overnight. out of all of the three main monsters in this film, George is basically the only one that kind of looks the way he was when he was at his original
Mhm.
size. Whereas where you have Ralph kind of having kind of that flying squirrel kind of wings uh, on him, as well as kind of the porcupine spines on him, and then Lizzie kind of being the most genetically edited out of the three.
Yeah, apparently and I didn't really get it until I was doing a little bit of research on this film that they wanted you that they were trying to imply, as far as the three creatures and how much of the genetic drug that they inhaled, that Ralph, I guess, supposedly was out of the three the one who inhaled most of it, because that's why he's so much more different in terms of his abilities, with the flying squirrel capabilities and the porcupine spikes. Oh boy, I have a hard time saying that for whatever reason. And then Lizzie is different, but not as much as like Ralph. I mean, sure, it's got those frills and it's got multiple rows of teeth, sort of
Although,
climbing capability.
but when you
Yeah,
see
George.
Lizzie kind of uh, gulping that, was it pot or whatever it was, it seemed it should have probably been the most to have been altered more compared to Ralph, where Ralph kind of inhaled maybe it seemed maybe just a bit more, or as the same amount that George did. And you can see in the background there of the one of the widens the original Rampage arcade, which is one of the Easter eggs in this film.
I heard a lot of people, obviously it's very easy to see because you can see it multiple times throughout the course of the film. And there were some people who had issue with that, and I'm just like, come on, guys, it's in the background and it's blurred. They don't make it like, the center of a shot or anything like that at any point. So, you know,
Mm,
just I think that, to me, if people have a serious issue about that, that to me is a nitpick that you just let it go. You give the movie that.
yeah. And then here you got Black Hill, which is kind of a mercenary group, which is kind of similar to Blackwater, but apparently bought out by the Widens as kind of their security uh, kind of people.
Didn't that brother Wyden, by the way, didn't he look like a rat? I mean, I look at him and I think of like a rat or a mouse,
He
just the
kind
way.
of does in the facial feature and
Yeah.
expressions at times. And the kind of the leading guy in that Black Hills mercenary group there, he also has a personal connection to the video game itself, and he spent many, many dollars playing it every day.
Mr. Ratface. I love his death towards the end of this film, but
I was kind of somewhat expecting it the way it was looking
I
when I
was
saw it in
too, yeah.
theaters. As it seems like probably about 3 to 5 seconds ahead of me.
They say, the name is CRISPR, and every time I think of that, I think of, the CRISPR you have in your refrigerator.
Yeah, the hard cider stuff. Yep.
It's like, couldn't you think of, couldn't you think of a different name?
Obviously, it's an acronym because I know
Right.
it's not spelled out like actually the CRISPR with an
Yeah.
E between the P and the R. Casper, Wyoming.
Brutal. Rat Fink.
Then also there's kind of a lot of theories when it came to that rat and kind of that containment
Oh, yeah.
in their office that could have been, was it Chris?
Curtis.
Curtis, yeah. That could have been Curtis, but obviously when I think Russell kept that rat with him when Wyden left. I'm not sure. We'll probably have to see when we
He
get to
did,
that point.
yeah. Because he kept the computer and the rat, and then Brett White and escaped. Well, he tried to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because a lot of people, from what I've heard, that could have been rumors that if they make a sequel to Rampage here, that could be Curtis in the next film.
I hope they make a sequel.
It'd be nice. I probably will have to kind of look up on the interwebs here to see if there could be any new news. I can maybe do that right now.
I have to say this though too, and there's something that I'm a little surprised we haven't even covered it while we're even this far in the movie, which we aren't too far in, but the original video game, anyways, and I forget whether or not the sequels did this too, but um, the original video game, like if you sort of quote unquote died, you turn back to the person.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically supposed to be people mutated into animals. And I'm so glad they didn't have that sort of thing here.
Yeah.
Although, and I can't confirm this yet, but my understanding was that later in this film, when Dwayne gets shot by the lead Wyden gal, that they were intending for him to turn into some sort of mutation. But then they ended up like cutting it and obviously changing it.
Yeah.
But I can't confirm or deny that.
And like one of the features mentioned that they didn't want to make the film too science fiction-y, and they kind of wanted it more grounded.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm glad they kept it that way because in my personal opinion, I mean, I wouldn't have cared as long as they tried to at least make it a respectable film. But I'm really glad that they went the route that they went.
mm-hmm.
I think I heard some people that wish that they wished like George, Ralph, and Lizzie were more similar to the video game characters in which they were walking on their hind feet and all that. And I'm just like, that would look so cartoony that I don't think the movie would have done as well. I mean, it would have been considered a huge flop, and that to me just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've found at least one article so far on Bustle saying that will Rampage get a sequel? There's one very solid reason that it will. And this was done in April 13th, which I haven't really fully read. I just kind of skimmed through it.
The movie did do pretty well box office wise.
Yeah. I would say at least one of those reasons, of course, you got Dwayne involved in the movie. And of course, here they're kind of going more into detail of what CRISPR is. So kind of get the audience to understand in more detail. Hey, want to turn yours down?
Oh, I did. It's just these Blu-rays when you get to the action sequences, and all of a sudden the volume. I have to say though, that part looked definitely CGI when he was breaking out through the glass, but still, not a big deal.
Yeah, a little bit. Where just like that entire window just shattered right away. Where I would have thought that maybe like kind of the outer edges, kind of in the far away area from the impact, that could have at least been intact, or a few cracks here and there. And then I kind of noticed that when he jumped from that San Diego Zoo sign there, I saw some of the rubble that kind of looked like it was kind of falling very slowly and kind of a bit jittery. So you can saw some things in there that didn't look a bit real.
I'm willing to give the movie that though.
Yeah,
'Cause
but
everything
it was
real.
kind of hard to notice though. You would have
Yeah.
to really look at it.
Yeah, because usually you're looking right at the object that's in motion,
Yeah.
the main object anyway that's in motion.
At least this is kind of one good thing when it comes to 4K, that you can see some of the details compared to some of the other mediums. I'd like to know how much dosage that each of those tranquilizers had, because it seemed like he had quite a bit of those tranquilizers on him there.
Well, he gets knocked out for a while. Here's a coming up on the scene. I think one of my personal favorite moments of the movie. This is one of those times in which no, it happens more
Oh,
frequently.
the Ralph one.
I I love seeing these guys die. I don't like these guys, which is good because these guys I think are jerks, but I really
But
I
I would
really
have to say also it's one of the most gory parts of the film.
it is. I honestly at one point had to look away when I saw this in theaters. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't believe they let this go, and I'm like, I'm gonna be sick to my stomach here.
Like I mentioned earlier, that I was pretty surprised in how much that they let go in a PG-13 movie, because you wouldn't expect something like that coming from a movie that's rated that.
This always reminds me of Rambo 2. This kind of like this helicopter sitting.
Somewhat, yeah. That's kind of what I thought of when I saw this. It kind of reminded me of the Rambo movies. Just the setting, and of course, the helicopter. I mean, it's a perfect mix. Which, by the way, speaking of Rambo, I can't wait for the new one to come out.
There's a new one?
Yep, John Rambo.
I knew they were talking about it, but I didn't know if it was confirmed or not.
Yeah, I think I showed you an Instagram photo from Stallone's official account.
Oh.
And also, speaking of which, this coming week is Creed 2.
Yeah. It's so funny. We're talking about Stallone movies and a Rampage commentary.
Well, we were just talking about like kind of that part of the scene in this one here that kind of reminded us of Rambo, which kind of dragged us away from the movie a bit.
Thoughts on Rambo 3?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was great. You see him in the background. He just flipped that guy.
Obviously, you're a few seconds ahead of me, so. But yeah, I was
wait and hold off on this until we got to it later in the movie. But I did and still do feel so bad for Ralph. You know, after the tower, after Willis Tower falls, and then, you know, all three monsters are sort of back in their natural state of mind, and he's basically off, not just quickly, but I think in a gruesome way.
Also, it's also kind of interesting when they try to shoot all these monsters in the film that some of the artillery and shells don't really impact.
Yeah, I don't. I think it might be explained later in the film, maybe, where they were saying that as they continue to grow and take in more, as their body just basically continues to mutate, that their hides become more like armor,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really nice. It's something they didn't have to do. Because you know how a lot of people are always like, well, the Japanese monsters, you know, it seems like artillery and stuff never, that's such a cool shot. Never really, oh, and he just plucks the guy out of there too. That's another great moment. You know, artillery and stuff never really seems to hurt them, and a lot of times they never really explain it. But here, I think they do, and they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So cool.
You know, also kind of like when we were talking about their hides being tough, and you can definitely tell when he was at the helicopter, all those blades, when they go really fast, that it didn't even hurt him at all.
Right. I'm glad Ralph at least got that. I still feel bad for him. I'm probably just going to whine and complain about that the entire commentary. I mean, I remember when I left the theater, I mean, that disturbed me. I'm just like, oh my God, like, what did they do to Ralph and all that? And I think you hadn't seen the movie yet, and I told you, I was like, what they do to Ralph is just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think I kind of remember that. And then, of course, in this scene here, we get our introduction of one of the other bigger characters in the film, Russell.
The cowboy version of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
The Rock is a pro wrestler, dude, or was. Does he still even wrestle anymore?
I'm not even sure the last time he did, but I think he kind of goes back there once in a while, kind of like Hogan did.
Because, my gosh, he's involved in so many movies anymore. I didn't think he would have time to actually wrestle.
I know the next movie that he'll be in, which I saw a trailer of it on YouTube, is a film that was made by WWE Studios, which is kind of a wrestling related movie.
I don't know if I want to see that one.
It's probably something I'm not really interested in from what I saw in the trailer.
Do you ever see Skyscraper?
No, I have not. I've kind of been wanting to see it because I think it's made by the same guy who did. I think the guy who directed this one also did San Andreas, which
You did San Andreas, I know that.
I,
I
I
Skyscraper looked kind of fun, but I wasn't sure if it was or not.
yeah, I've been kind of interested to see how that movie went. I kind of had a little bit of interest. I kind of decided it's like I'll just probably wait until it kind of comes out digitally. Maybe just rent it from Voodoo or something, or if Amazon Prime does it for free.
Well, probably with it being a new movie, I don't think they'll do it for free just yet.
Yeah.
Wow, just tearing up all the deer. I like this, getting the name for Ralph, basically saying, "Oh, you're just the people on the internet call him Ralph." It's sort of a stupid explanation, but at the same time, it's kind of nice that they put that. Again, that's something they didn't even have to do either. But and of course, Lizzie, they never actually call her Lizzie, which I'm okay with.
hmm
You can't tell me that, and I forget that actor's name, but you can't tell me he doesn't look like Tony Stark.
A little bit. I know. I think he was kind of one of the main villains or something from the Walking Dead series.
That's what I know. I don't watch The Walking Dead. That's not my sort of thing. But he was in
Same
there
here.
like a couple seasons or something.
Yeah, it's like when it comes to zombie movies, to me, they're just highly overrated. It's
Uh,
basically the
uh,
same thing over and over.
About the only ones I'll watch, and I don't know if I don't know if you can consider them truly zombie movies or the Resident Evil films.
Yeah. To me, I think just maybe the first two for me, and I kind of stopped watching them after
Some
that.
of the sequels are good. Part three is okay, but parts 4 through 6 I think are really good.
I think the last zombie related movie I saw was World War Z with
I didn't
Brad
want to
Pitt.
see that. I heard mixed reviews, but it still didn't sound like my kind of film.
It was okay.
I never read the book either.
I
Go
haven't
play
either.
on
So,
it. Come on, guys, stick to Rampage. Okay.
yep.
Sorry, just filler gap. So we just decided. So, Jason, what do you think of zombie movies? They suck. Okay. I'm sorry, folks. I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm trying to mute my mic if I have to cough. So I apologize in advance if I forget.
yeah.
I don't mean to get political here, and I'm not, but this is just another observation. Not only does that guy look like a rat, he looks like Trump Jr.
Uh, yeah, and one of the other things I want to point out from the feature is that there was a reason that they made the location of kind of the later half of the film in Chicago was that kind of the setting in the game was kind of in Illinois in a way because you kind of saw in one of the scenes for the commentary that it mentioned Peoria, which is based in Illinois there. So they kind of decided to kind of have the movie based in kind of the later half of it in Chicago.
I'm glad it's Chicago because, I mean, granted, in the big scheme of things, I wouldn't have cared as long as I got a fun film. But I'm just kind of glad it wasn't New York or L.A. So many films are held in those two locations.
Yeah. Plus, we kind of have a relation to the city. It's like, hey, all the monsters were here.
It makes sense. G-Fest, that's why they're getting it. That's why all Ralph and Lizzie and George are coming there. They're like, hey, G-Fest, we got to go.
Yeah.
I got one of my own little creatures trying to get in my room here. This, I do like this. Ralph does get a lot of awesome scenes in this film.
Mm-hmm.
What are those ships there?
Hmm?
Yeah, they're ships. How, why wouldn't they show like a quick snapshot of like people going, oh my gosh, like there's this giant creature there. Like I got to try to radio this into the Coast Guard or something.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I'm willing to give the movie this. And despite the movie, I think it's actually what, like an hour, 47-minute film or something to that extent. For it being nearly a 2-hour film, it runs at such a brisk pace that you never feel, that runtime.
Mm-hmm.
That's always, to me, boy, excuse me, that's, to me, a sign of a great film is if you don't feel its time limit, regardless of how long or short it is.
Mm-hmm. Seems to me the way that military plane is flying, it seems a bit too low.
They always tell you don't want to. Although, granted, I mean, it may it may be bulletproof on the inside, but they always say you never want to fire your gun inside of an airplane.
Yeah. I think when it comes to military planes, they're built really well built compared to actual commercial airplanes.
Well, apparently they're not built well enough to handle a 15-foot gorilla.
Well, because in real life, like we don't even think about something like that.
They need to start thinking about that, though. If CRISPR really is out there, they need to start thinking about these things. But this was a fun day of filming.
Obviously, from the features and stuff, that was just kind of where they were in. It was just part of a plane.
I've noticed
Kind
more
of built on a back lot.
more and more films anymore are trying to do like these moments where your characters are in planes and they're fighting each other midair. And of course, that's done by taking a plane and doing like this nosedive deal. Because I remember seeing a deal on, I think it was on the news many years ago, where they were showing how NASA astronauts try to practice for some of the weightlessness.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they take these planes and they fly many thousands of feet up in the air, and then they basically do a nosedive for a while, and that's how they achieve the weightlessness.
Yeah.
And now Hollywood's starting to do more of this for their films. I know Tom Cruise did it in the one Mummy movie. I almost want to say maybe they did it again in his latest Mission Impossible film, but
Mm-hmm.
Rampage, okay.
But obviously, they were just in a part of a plane that was actually built kind of in a back lot. And the same goes with the Willis Tower when they're on the roof. That was kind of just part of a roof that was built, kind of a
Yeah.
studio back lot. I think somewhere in Atlanta.
Right. Yeah, I figured that had to be a set because there's no way they would take all that. You would still have to take quite a bit of movie um, gear up to the top of that tall building to film some of those scenes, which are kind of dangerous too. And it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're ever going to do that.
Yeah, and then a lot of some of the scenes kind of in Chicago, some of it was kind of done on site there, and then a lot of it they like actually built and mapped out Chicago kind of in a CGI sort of way,
Which
which to
makes
me,
sense.
which to me was pretty interesting how they did that.
My goodness. I hate heights. I'm just imagining myself being in their position, falling like this.
At least you kind of had your first kind of plane experience not long ago.
Yeah. Well, being in a plane's one thing, but
Yeah.
jumping out of it is a totally different thing. I really want to know how many people who saw this movie actually thought George was dead at this point.
Probably quite a few. I mean, just the way that he looked towards the end of the movie, I thought he was kind of
Well,
dead.
I'm talking about like here, right in this moment.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean that part at the end. Yeah, I honestly thought I was like, oh yeah, I called it, and then they pulled, bluffed. But like
well,
here, I knew I was just like, no, George is coming back. I mean,
if you
first of
thought
all,
that,
second of all, you still have like half a movie. There's no way they're gonna, kill off George this soon.
yeah, I didn't think you were talking about this part here, but yeah, if you were talking about here, then it's like obviously a lot of people would think no, there's still more movie left, and be it's like if they had him die in this, it's like what's the point? What's the point of continuing watching the movie?
You know what I would love to see is if they had done a movie like this and they pulled that sort of a stunt and they released it on April Fool's Day and people just maybe didn't think about it and made so many people upset, and they're like, April Fools, that's not the real movie. Here's the real movie. Come and see it starting April 2nd.
It was kind of somewhat that way, actually, with Bryan Cranston's character in the 2014 Godzilla movie, where they kind of had him die kind of pretty early in the film, where a lot of people thought that he was going to live, but apparently not.
Well, yeah, but he's not like he's not like Godzilla though. Like it would like here we're talking about George, basically one of the stars. I mean, that's why we're coming to see this film. It's like with Godzilla 2014, we're going there to see Godzilla. It's like Godzilla got killed by a Muto in Hawaii. The end. They finally have the official teaser for that up, by the way, the King of the Monsters.
Oh yeah, they've had the like the trailer and stuff out for quite a while.
Well, I'm talking about the poster.
Oh,
The female body investigation team.
Mm. Acronym now does kind of make sense. I think there's some other kind of joke where I heard some other version for the acronym FBI. I forget what it was.
Fat-bodied individuals.
I don't know.
I just made that up on the spot.
I kind of like how the Widens here are kind of somewhat the opposite, where Brett is kind of a bit suspicious, or kind of has that suspicious kind of like, oh crap kind of look, and then where his sister kind of has like, I don't give a crap. It's like, what did I do wrong? Type of attitude. For a sec there, I thought I might have lost connection with you. It's like I didn't hear anything on your end until I heard mouse clicking.
This is a heartbreaking scene. This really also, I mean, if you don't walk away
Oh yeah,
poachers, you have no heart. I mean, this is just really that's quite a scene.
yeah. I kind of forgot about this. It also kind of really deepens the relationship between Dwayne's character and George. And it's kind of like you're really kind of immersed in their friendship. You still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I was kind of hoping it kind of hears a little bit of feedback there. It was like, is he still there? And this is another thing to point out, is that this is also kind of part of the scene where kind of come to find out that Davis, Dwayne's character, doesn't really trust humans as much.
I can relate to that. Anybody who's been around me long enough knows I'm not a fan of people. Then why are you talking to me, Kent? I don't know, because a monkey actually won't today. No joke. I mean, anybody who's had a pet knows just, how awesome they are. And it's just like all you need is a pet. They don't care how you look, they don't care how you sound, they don't care how small or fat or tall or stupid even you are. They just Who is this? I picked him up at the Cracker Barrel.
I like how the military guy seems like he's pissed all the time.
With the commander here?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the military brass look that way in movies. How true that is in real life, or I don't know.
Looks like he's kind of has that angry and kind of that really stiff uh, attitude, which I don't think all of them do all the time.
It's insane how they condition like everybody in the military. It's just I would almost consider it abuse on some level.
Well, a lot of them is just to kind of get him in shape and not be afraid to many
Well, I
conditions.
know, but at the same time, like if you try to fit back into society, especially if you after you've seen combat, they talk about PTSD. Well, my gosh, the government isn't helping these people all that well to seek, counseling and other help.
Right.
This isn't working out for me. You capture me. No, not. I don't like it.
I'm kind of surprised, when they were flying these guys over to the base that, at first they kind of had them in those kind of the hand ties and stuff. You would think that they would have put him back into those.
But look at the Rock's arm, just like he was telling this military guy, "That's a big arm. Don't resist." Like, I would think he would be able to just bust out of those. Those to me look like zip ties. Now, granted, I don't know if how
Yeah.
different the ones that they use to arrest people, and I don't know how much different they are from your regular zip ties. But
And I think they are zip ties. I think, of course, there's I think uh, as far as thickness when it comes to zip ties, because I know I've seen some pretty kind of thick zip ties, which they're basically are.
well, yeah, I mean they zip and they're ties, but I thought the ones that they use to arrest people, I thought were at least like wider, maybe even a bit thicker.
I think they might have had them kind of have them designed in a specific way. I know I've seen some versions where they kind of look like handcuffs in a way.
Maybe that'll be my Halloween costume next year. I got some zip ties out in my garage. I'll just put myself in a couple of those.
You get an orange jumpsuit. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm a prisoner.
And then a cop actually pulls up beside me and actually thinks I'm an escape convict and tries to actually arrest me. No, you don't understand. This is my costume.
You're like, sure, sure. And I'm the Easter Bunny.
You are?
No, damn it. Get in the car.
No. I mean, look at this. I mean, we're already just over an hour into the film, and I mean, it doesn't seem like we've been at this all that long.
I think close to halfway, I believe.
We're more than halfway. We're like about 2/3 of the way through.
Really? Wow. It seems like as always when you're in theaters watching this for the first time, it seems like it takes longer. But then when you actually have the movie on hand and then watching it over and over again, it's like it's like it goes faster and faster.
I like this scene. I do think it's a nice little comedy scene.
Yeah.
I know some complained that there wasn't as much rampaging in this film, and I can sort of understand that. But again, you have to understand that this movie was a $120 million budget, and again, like I said, it's not chump change, but you know,
And two, a lot of it is going to have to go into the whole CGI stuff because I mean,
yeah.
a lot of people just don't understand how much time and effort is put into that.
Well, and on top of that, I think when they actually get to Chicago, I think they show quite a few good destruction just in Chicago.
Yeah. Because to me, I think just say the best stuff towards the end there.
In order to entice everyone to evacuate the city, we're giving them a package of Oreos.
That'd be pretty funny if that actually happened.
House, pack your stuff in the car, and then you get your Oreos.
What kind of Oreos?
Double stuff. Oh, my favorite.
I was hoping for some Christmas special kind of Oreos.
It's kind of surreal because I've been to some of these locations here.
I've still yet to go into the downtown area.
Well, and it's funny because the year Dark of the Moon came out, that ending battle was held in Chicago too. And I saw that movie before going to Chicago, and I was down in some of those places where that movie was filmed.
I know since we're going to be in Chicago next year for a week again for GFest, it'd be kind of nice to actually maybe just one of us for one day just kind of go down there and just kind of go to certain places.
Look at how much bigger Ralph is compared to George.
Yeah.
I like this too. I remember seeing this in theaters when Ralph goes down to look at the dog. I had two gals sitting in front of me that were going, "Oh, he's gonna eat the doggy."
I kind of thought at first.
I knew he wasn't gonna eat the dog. I'm like, "There's no way they're gonna do that."
Yeah. And this one is also pretty interesting with the porcupine spikes.
I like that. Hey, you're blocking the screen.
It's like every time I see those type of planes, it reminds me of Man of Steel and Jericho, the TV show.
Never saw Jericho.
That one's a pretty interesting one. Not going to talk about it right here right now. Is going to get away from Rampage once more. But it's on Netflix. I would suggest taking a look at it whenever you have the chance.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, wrong movie. Such a cool shot. There are a lot of cool shots in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, the comedy in this movie is really good because normally in a lot of films anymore, there's either like scatological or toilet slash humor. Some of it's immature, but it's just like the comedy in this film. Yeah, it seems sort of obvious in some ways, but at the same time, you don't see enough of it in actual films that when it does show up in a film like this, it is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Skirunch. You know what I would love to see is someone actually make a movie video game based off of this Rampage version. I don't know how much Dave and Buster's had to pay to have George destroy the front of it.
Maybe quite a bit.
At least it's not Dr. Pepper. Anybody who's a Godzilla 1985 fan knows what I'm talking about. How can you not enjoy this? I mean, this is a lot of fun. I mean, just you had three giant monsters in a giant metropolitan area just destroying stuff, and this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the scenes right here when George punches the hole in that one of the buildings there, you can definitely see he grabs someone and then eats them. That's
Oh, he
another
does?
Easter egg.
I never saw that.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed from the feature that I was watching. It's like, huh, I didn't realize that.
I know we've seen Ralph. I don't think we see Liz. Well, I guess technically Lizzie did by destroying that jet. That guy was in the cockpit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of a neat little Easter egg.
Yeah, well, it's so far away, and so much else is happening. And take a package of Oreos with you.
Instead of double stuffed, I want vanilla cream or whatever it is. No, wait, I want birthday cake.
Or caramel corn. It seems to me it's a little soon to be thinking about dropping a Moab on all that.
Well, maybe since like a lot of the options that they have currently on ground there is just not really effective. So
Well, they never try baiting them with pet food. Did they ever try that? Until they try that. Hey, Ralph, you want some Caesar?
maybe not just Caesar, Little Caesars.
Yeah, they would take the whole establishment.
Like just recently, I've had Little Caesars a couple times. I can't believe how good it is. Even their crazy breadsticks.
Brought to you by Jason, whose tummy is growling.
Kind of is, actually, to be honest. The usual kicking in the door.
So there's another Easter egg about to come up here. Hint: red dress.
Yep. Yeah, that's also another thing that they referenced in the special features.
I totally forgot about that until someone reminded me after I saw the movie in theaters. I'm like, oh, that's right, because it's been a long time since I played the original arcade slash Nintendo version.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's right. The lady in the red dress was sort of a big deal in that original one.
It's kind of funny with the Widens that they get rid of some of the important stuff, like drives and all that other stuff, but then they forget certain things that'll kind of be the key.
Well, I mean, you're looking over how many different things. I mean, technically, you could argue just about all of this is important.
Mm-hmm.
But, how can you keep track of all of this? I have trouble enough just trying to keep track of my keys.
Every time I look at those type of pens, it kind of reminds me of the EpiPens.
I was just thinking that too. I'm like, "And there's the EpiPen for George."
Guy with a big lower puffed out lip. It's like, don't you dare.
Little boo boo lip.
Like, I don't know why. That's another thing. It's like, I don't know why you have to hand over a couple of those Epi like pens, even though there's tons more in that container behind her.
Oh well. Well, it was a very quick shot, and of course, we find out here in a few moments, anyways. But it was a very quick shot where, if you paid very careful attention, she handed over only two of the three.
Yeah. But then again, it's like there's still more behind.
Yeah. Oh well. Again, I give the movie that
Yeah.
because everything else is being done so well.
I kind of like that whole Sears Tower kind of shot.
Oh, what a way to go! Can you imagine that being tossed up in the air and you're all the way up on top of the Willis Tower and then you fall how many hundreds of feet?
I think they said when they were talking about the whole Sears Tower kind of thing, and one of the features that probably around over 1,400 feet.
Jeez. Can you imagine that free fall?
Yeah, especially when the tower itself falls over and how much destruction that can actually do. It's like it's kind of ridiculous.
As that tower was falling, think of 9/11.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was.
So when I saw that, I'm like, well, okay, like, yeah, we are 17 years from that, but I'm like, that's also kind of gutsy.
Yeah. I would like to know how he got down there really fast.
Well, yeah, I thought that too, but again, I just
It
give
looks
it.
it looked like he really came down the stairs too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that would take a while, especially coming down from 1,400 feet in the
Well,
air.
like the guy here was saying, "Damn, boy, did you just come down 85 flights of stairs?"
And yeah, here's that scene that we were kind of mentioning about earlier when it comes to Brett.
And they add a splatter there too.
It's like if that actually happened, I wouldn't even know if that would actually happen.
I don't know if it would, but there would be some, but whether or not it would be like that, I don't know. But it's a movie again. You got a giant wolf, crocodile, and gorilla here.
Yeah.
I like this shot. It makes it definitely look like Lizzie's swimming through the building here.
Yeah. It's really making the building unstable too. You know, it's also kind of funny too that I think Lizzie was kind of halfway up, but then in that shot, it was kind of close to the ground. And that's another thing I just noticed.
Oh, see how both Ralph and George are a little like beat up a little bit from artillery fire.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh man. I like how the animals are like preparing themselves for the fall too.
Yeah, man, that whole destruction when the tower's just falling down. I would kind of like to know, after the whole aftermath of everything, is like how much damage costs it would be just to clean all that up.
Trillions. Because you just lost like one of the tallest structures. That alone's got to be in the billions.
Yeah, probably. And another interesting to kind of point out when it comes to this scene here, that when they were filming this, it wasn't just like one gigantic sort of set that they did. They kind of made kind of little islands, kind of little patches of islands of certain areas that they shot uh, from the from the back lot, which was pretty interesting that how they did that. And I like how George got his senses back.
You could tell Ralph hitched it out of there. He's like, there's no way I'm messing with that thing.
I mean, just the way Lizzie looks.
The thing's so big. Smash. I like that. Just take like a little bridge or scaffolding and just smash it. Or no, it looked like part of a curtain, I guess. Tosses Ralph. Of course, the wolf flies. Coming up to one of my least favorite parts of this film. Ah, fuck. That's just, oh, so fucking brutal. Oh. See, now I really want Lizzie dead. That's just, oh.
Yep, and Ralph has been eliminated.
That disturbs me every time. I've seen this movie 3 times and it gets me every time. That's the thing though, like they really do a good job of like playing with you, like really getting you involved in the fight here.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool with George just flying up, trying to smash Lizzie's head with the garbage truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're already towards the end of this movie already.
Yeah, I know. Oh, pulls out the tooth, stabs it.
That's also kind of another thing. It's like when I noticed that, I was like, oh my god. Like that has to hurt.
I don't care because Lizzie did in Ralph. I'm really wanting Lizzie to go. And see here, right here. Oh, grabs George. Oh, and I just, oh. You're just like, you really want Lizzie to die.
I mean, with that kind of blast, you would think that it should have killed Lizzie right there.
Yeah, I knew it didn't, though. I'm like, that's too convenient. Oh,
Yeah.
the 2 ladies that sat in front of me in the theater, they were really getting into it. Like when Lizzie got George, they were like, oh no. And then when George got stabbed there, they were like, oh.
Yeah, I was kind of a little surprised of that.
Again, the movie does a really good job of getting you to root for George and basically to just have Lizzie die.
Yeah. It's like this is kind of where the movie really makes you get immersed into what's really going on.
I like this, George. Ugh.
That would be kind of a horrible way to die.
Ugh.
Yeah, and this kind of part right here, when I was in theaters, I kind of get teary-eyed a bit because you think that George was going to die right there.
Well, yeah, I really thought that that's what they were going to do. I thought, they were going to have it to where, assume that there weren't going to be any sequels. Because, like I was telling you, look, giant animals, they're not going to have either one of them survive. It's almost like he's got a design on the back of his skull, like he had something attached to it.
Who's this?
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dwayne.
Some of those people don't look that dirty.
I was seeing at least a few kind of walking in the background there. Yeah. Maybe a few scrapes here and there. I would have kind of thought that some of them would at least be covering kind of that dust stuff from the fall of Sears Tower.
Well, that's what I thought too.
And it's kind of funny how they put in a little bit of comedy towards the end here.
Well, yeah. Keep them laughing or keep them feeling good on the way out.
Yeah. And that one, I think, was probably the most hilarious part.
Rampage. All right.
Yep, and that's basically it right there.
Yeah. So, kind of wrap it up here with some final thoughts, and then maybe like uh, like a star rating. Uh, so I still think it's enjoyable. Again, this is my third time watching it. I mean, this gets me immersed every time. This movie does a wonderful job of getting you to feel for George and to side with him, and to really root against Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's a very well put together movie. And again, like I said, I think those who think that this is a movie you just sort of kind of uh I don't know, just kind of brush aside, or that it has no substance, whatever. I think those people are wrong. You folks are wrong because this thing has a lot of heart in it. And yes, it's based off of a simple video game, but there's a lot of substance here to it. It is very well made. This to me, in terms of not just kaiju movies, but even movies that I've seen in recent years, this to me is one of those films where it's just such a big surprise as to how good it is. Because yeah, going into it, I'm like, look, as long as you give me a fun film with the three original characters destroying stuff, I'll be there, right there with you. And there's more to this than that. And I really dig it. It's a really fun film, great effects. Dwayne Johnson it really helps this film as well. It's in my opinion, it's one of the better recent giant monster films that has been put out there in like the last 10, 15 years. I do think Pacific Rim Uprising again is a great movie. I really do. I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for. But if I were to rate them, I would put this one ahead of Pacific Rim Uprising. I think this one is just a little bit better than that. So if I were to rate this film out of 5 stars, this to me easily gets a 5. It does what it's supposed to do, and then some. It exceeds my expectations every time. Out of the 3 times that I watch this film, I always am just blown away by just how much love was put into this thing and just how well it's made. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, with this being my second viewing, it seems it's gotten a lot better than when I saw it in theaters. And of course, it seemed to go a little bit faster for me this time around. And it also felt like I was more immersed with the story and the characters of this film, even after watching the special features about the film and how kind of the background and how the film came to be and everything. And then some of the like the actors and actresses tie kind of personal ties with the video game. And it just also kind of that to me it also kind of said that everyone um, wanted to make this movie good, and it also kind of made the film better because they kind of knew everything about the subject at hand, and every like even with the three kind of the three main stars of the film with Lizzie, Ralph, and George, and also just kind of somewhat building a new story from scratch because with the video game, it didn't really have much of a story behind it from the get go. So they kind of had to kind of try to create something from scratch. And to me, it worked with the things at hand, and I mean, just with the visual effects and even the music to kind of tie in with the movie, it was really great, and I think everything was just put well together. It's a really fantastic film. And I would say it's one of the greater ones that we've seen recently, along with Pacific Rim Uprising, the 2014 Godzilla film. And I would say comparing with those three, well, and then along with the original Pacific Rim, I probably would put this number 2 behind the 2014 Godzilla,
Oh.
and one of the more recent monster films that we've had. So yeah, and obviously it would obviously overpower the Shin Godzilla, obviously, which to you probably would agree with me on that one.
Revenge tops Shin, but
for me, with a rating out of 5, I would also give this a 5 as well, easily.
all right. Well, with that, we hope you enjoyed this commentary on Rampage. We inserted a few other things in there along the way, but
it's always good.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.